Malekith, Witch King of Naggaroth. I'm Malekith, son of Enerion, the demon's bane. Hear my name and know me, the rightful king of the elves. Long ago, the war between the High Elves and the Dark Elves raged for centuries. Most of the High Elves have won, but can that continue now that the Malekith is back and stronger than before? Forewarned of Malekith's intent, the mages of the Phoenix King roused their magic to thwart the spell of unbinding. As the sorcerers of Malekith stood upon the summits of their black towers and struggled for control of the vortex, great forces shook the lands. The mountains trembled and the seas bucked and heaved as dark and light waged a mystical battle for control of the swirling power at the heart of Ulthuan.
Order must be maintained!
As night came, the stars obscured by flickering wick lights and coronas of magical energy, the Witch King and his coven exerted the last of their strength. Fueled by demonic pacts, their magic was the stronger and the shields of the Phoenix King's mages began to crumble. The vortex itself howled and screeched, and then began to flicker. It was then, at the very moment that the vortex failed, that a new power entered the contest. Freed from their long stasis, Kaladin Dragontamer and his mages so long trapped within the vortex's stasis returned to the realm of the living. Instantly realizing the peril about to engulf Ulthuan, they added their own incantations to that of the Phoenix King's wizards, and with the colossal release of magical energy they dragged the vortex back into place once more. The backlash of so much raw magical power tore Ulthuan asunder. A tidal wave 1,000 feet high crashed upon the northern coasts, engulfing Naggaroth and Tiranoc. Cities were washed away and tens of thousands of elves perished. The earth heaved and cracked, and so great was the magical explosion that it was noted in the halls of the dwarfs, thousands of miles to the east as the deluge swept down upon the realm of Malekith. His followers used the last of their sorcerous power to hold back the storm. Energized with chaos magic, their dark citadels were broken free from their rocky foundations and rose upon the frothing waves.
The Ever Queen! Destruction awaits!
Malekith's last plan had failed and his energy was spent. His kingdom lay beneath the waves and his army was all but destroyed. Upon the floating castles of Naggaroth, the terrible Black Arcs as they would be called in later years, the Witch King and his minions fled the wrath of the cataclysm they had unwittingly unleashed. North and west they travelled, across the churning seas to the desolate wilderness of the continent of Naggaroth, the land of Chill. The war at sea swung back and forth as much as the war on land, but after 200 years of naval battles, the High Elves were gaining the upper hand. Their ships and crews were more disciplined than the bloodthirsty corsairs of Naggaroth, who were used to raiding human and orc settlements and fighting against unwitting and subtle opponents. The High Elves hit the Dark Elf convoys hard and then retreated, sapping the strength of Naggaroth's fleet. Even the mighty Black Arcs, once invincible, met their match. The Palace of Joyous Oblivion, commanded by Lathern Filhurth, was sunk by the enchanted Starblade ram of the dragon ship in Drogn in a sea battle not far from the Blighted Isle. Their confidence shattered by this blow, the raiders of Naggaroth were more reluctant to dare the High Elf patrols over the coming years. Though Malekith could make no inroads towards the inner kingdoms, his armies remained poised on the far side of the Anulii Mountains, ever ready for a moment of weakness. The huge drain on the fleets and armies required to watch for Dark Elf attacks seriously undermined the support Ulthuan could lend to the colonies across the other continents of the world. With the inner kingdoms secure against attack by the mounted fortresses, Kaladin deemed the time was right to drive Malekith and his Dark Elves from Ulthuan once and for all. Once his borders were protected by the sea again, he could then send vitally needed troops and ships to aid in battle all across the far-flung corners of the growing Elven Empire. For nearly 10 years, the High Elf fleet's uncanny Nagarothi ships that approached the northern coast. Their naval dominance was supreme, and the Dark Elves isolated on Ulthuan grew weary of their master's constant attacks against the impregnable fortress gates of the Anulii passes. It was perhaps untimely, then, that Kaladin chose to heap pressure upon Malekith by launching an offensive against the Shadowlands in a bid to reclaim the Blighted Isle for Ulthuan. Faced with this sudden aggression by their kin, the Dark Elves quickly set aside their seditious plotting and stopped their desertions, instead rallying to the banner of the Witch King. Fighting for their ancestral lands, the Nagarothi were hate-filled and vicious, and Kaladin's advance swiftly stalled. Knowing that to retreat would be to give the Dark Elves an opportunity to counter-attack, Kaladin pushed onwards, fighting for every hillock, valley and isle. After a further 10 years, the Dark Elves were finally driven from the Blighted Isle, at tremendous cost. Malekith's worst fear seemed at hand when Kaladin travelled to the Shrine of Cain. Yet for all the Witch King's dread, Kaladin resisted the whispers of the god of murder and left the Sword of Cain in its black altar. With the Blighted Isle now in High Elf hands, Kaladin set sail to return to Lothern. His departure was seen by the screaming spells of Morathi, and she called down a storm to sink the High Elf fleet. Most of the ships survived the battering wind and waves, but the fleet was scattered and Kaladin's vessel was sent far off course.
Retribution! Die, Azor! Destruction awaits! God curse! King and country! Our allies abandon us! Die, rooted! We are overcome! Allied units flee! All is chaos! Order must be maintained! Cravens! Our allies rout! This is madness!